Hi, this is Laura Staley, and I'm back with another video. I've been working on a series of videos about using functions and formulas in Excel. And today's video is on using date functions in Excel. Now, there are a lot of them, and some of you may use quite a few of them if you use a lot of dates and you need to manipulate them, or some of you may find one or two come in handy. Now, in my last video on formulas and functions, I covered how to use dates in math and in formulas that you create yourself, like subtracting one date from another or adding and those types of things. Today, I'm going to actually cover the functions that Microsoft builds in to Excel. Now, like I said, there's a lot of them, so I'm not going to cover all of them, but I'm going to cover the top ones that I think are most useful to the most people. And I will put a link to the blog post that covers these down in the description, and those will go over more of them. So if you want to follow up and learn about more than I cover in this video, be sure to check out that link. Okay, now, date functions work like other functions. They start with an equal. There are certain ones that are built in, and you have to provide the correct arguments for them, and so on and so forth. So let's just go ahead and plunge in. Now, I have this file that is going to step us through this. And I tried to put in some of them the formulas out here on the right side so you could see what I am talking about. They are also in the blog post. So if you miss some of the details and you want to go check that out, that's another reason to go check it out. Okay, so let's plunge in. So there are times when I want to know the number of days between two different days, two different dates. And in the last video, I showed how to create a formula to do that. And it was equal the end date or the later date minus the start date or the earlier date. So that is one way to do it. Another way is to use the days function. And that is one that is built in. Now, I could type it in, or I can go up to the function wizard, the insert function button up here to the left of the formula bar, and I can type in days, and there it is, and click OK, and it will tell me the arguments that I have. So this is a fairly simple one. It just wants to know the end date, and if you watch my other videos, you know I'm very visual. I like to click on the cells instead of lining my eyes up to figure out what the cell reference is. So you can type in the cell reference, or you can click like I am doing here. So I'm going to click on the end date, go to the start date, click on that one, and then I'm going to click OK. And then there are 21 days between August 10th and August 31st, which you could have done without the function. But if there was a larger span, it would be more impressive. Okay, so that's the first way, is to figure out the number of days between two dates. And you can do that a couple of different ways. Now, another thing that a lot of people want to do is they want to count the number of days between two dates, but they're doing this in their job. They're figuring out how many days there are for a project or to get something done. And they don't count weekends because they don't work on the weekends. And they don't count holidays because they don't work on. So there is a function called network days, NETWORK DAYS, just like it sounds. This network days function will help you figure out the number of days between two dates and automatically eliminate weekends and holidays if you provide the holidays. That's not automatic. So let me show you what we're talking about. So just in the basic function, if I type in equal network days, and notice a little bubble where it provides the syntax. It wants me to identify the start date first. So I'm going to click on that and then put in a comma and put in the end date. And then if I don't identify holidays, it'll tell me that there are 185 working days between September 1st, 2019 and May 15th, 2020. So that would eliminate weekends automatically. Now, if I want to identify holidays, I would do equal network days, open parentheses, start date, comma, end date, and then comma. And if I only have one holiday, I can just click on the link. So I'm going to click on this first holiday, close my parentheses, and hit enter. And in this case, big surprise, there's 184 working days because it also eliminated that one holiday that I identified. Okay, now if there's more than one holiday during that time, and in this case I've got 4, then you have to use the cell range with the first cell reference, the colon, and then the last cell. Okay, so I type in equal network days, open parenthesis, click on the start date, comma, end date, comma, and then the cell range reference is C9 colon F9. Close parenthesis, hit enter, and it's 181 days because I added 3 more holidays, so that's how many. Now, most of the time you are not going to, do one day of the 4 holidays and then the next 3 as well. I just wanted to show you how to do both one day if there's only one day, and then how to do a range if there's more than one holiday. Okay, so that's how you eliminate holidays and weekends. Now, this is assuming that your weekend is Saturday and Sunday. That Microsoft just assumes that. So there is another function called Network Days INTL, which lets you designate which 2 days are your weekends. And so that is another one. So if your weekend is Monday and Tuesday instead of Saturday and Sunday, you would want to use that one instead. Okay, now another thing that you might want to do with dates is to have a start date and then try to figure out what the date is a certain number of days later. So there is a function called workday that allows you to do that. And it does something similar to the function that we just covered, network days, because it will eliminate weekends and if you designate them holidays. So let's say you say, okay, this project is going to start on September 15, 2020, which is the date I'm going to use. And I want to know what the date is 151 days later, because that's how many days I figure we're going to need to get this project done. But I want to eliminate weekends and holidays so that I am dealing with reality when I am figuring out the end date. So if I don't have holidays, the way I do it is I click on equal workday, and then you just identify the start date and then comma, and then you can either type in the number of days to completion, or you can click on the cell that has it. Now, personally, I suggest the latter, because if you change your mind and you decide that you need less or more days, all you have to do is change the number in the cell, and all of the formulas that refer back to that cell will automatically change. But you can do it however you want. So I'm going to close my parenthesis, hit enter, And that date is April 14th, 2021. Okay, now, personally, I want to eliminate holidays because I don't plan on working holidays. So I do a similar thing as above. I do equal work day, open parenthesis, do my start date, comma, my cell with the number of days to completion, comma, and then the cell reference of the holidays. And that is C17 to E17. Close parenthesis, hit enter. Okay, and then there is my date a few days later than my original one. And notice it's 5 days later, I only had 3 holidays, but apparently there was a weekend in there, so it pushed it that much further out. Okay, is this making sense? Can you see why you might want to use some of these functions so that you can base your projections on reality? Like I said, unless you're going to work 7 days a week, you would want to take weekends into account and holidays. Okay, now you could also get the last day of any month in relation to the current month. So, for example, if let's see, we're in August 2020 at the filming of this video, if I wanted to know what the end of the month was for next month, it would be September 2020. And over here on the right, you can see 3 different examples. Now, if I wanted to know the last day of this month, I would do equal, and this function is EOMONTH, end of month, open parenthesis, and then I am going to put the date that I am dealing with, so August 7th, 2020, and then I'm going to do a parenthesis, and then if I want the end of this month, I put 0. So that says do not go forward or backward any months. And when I hit enter, of course, it's August 31st, 2020. Okay, so that is one example. Now I have the other examples here where if I put in a 1, it goes to the next month. So I do equal end of month, open parenthesis, or EO month, do the start date, comma, and then if I put in 1, it's going to give me September. If I were to put in -1, it would give me July, 1 month back. So you can go either direction if you need to know that. And you can go out however many months you want. So over here on the right, I have an example of 5. So it would give me the end of the month, 5 months out. So you can customize it forwards or backwards. And sometimes you want to do this, not because you don't know what the end of the month date is, but you might use it in as part of a nested function where you then use that date in another function. So that is something to keep in mind. Okay, now another thing that's similar is you may want to add a certain number of months to a given date and get what the date is. So I have some examples here. These are fairly simple, but if I wanted to go up further, let's see, I'm going to do eDate, EDATE is the function. So EDATE, open parenthesis, and it gives me, as usual with all of them, the syntax down here. So I'm going to give it the start date, and then I'm going to do comma, and I have 1, -1, and 5 over to the right. But let's say I wanted to do 16, and then close parenthesis and hit enter. Okay, once I hit enter, it gives me the date 16 months out from the date that I entered. So it is December 7th, 2021. And again, you may use this as a nested function where you're determining this date and then you use it either in a nested function or in other functions spread around your spreadsheet. So that's something else to keep in mind. Now, there are times when you might want to have a file where you always display the current date. So anytime someone opens that file, it's going to show the current date in a specific cell. And that is equal today, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and then just hit enter. If I were to save this and open it again tomorrow, instead of August 7th, it would say August 8th in this cell, because it will always show the current date. So that is something that you might want to have, like with a form that people fill out and then they save it as for their own records. Now, there may be times when you have data in your spreadsheet that looks like a date. And over here are some examples. 15-AUG, August 15, 2020, 8/15/2020, August 15-20. And so the function that you can use is date value. And what it will do is it will take any text that looks like a date that it recognizes as a date, and it will transform it into a number and assign it that date. So let me show you. If I do equal date value, open parenthesis, and then I'm going to click on the cell that is formatted as text that says 15-AUG, and then I'm going to close parenthesis and hit enter. Then it converts that into a number that has the 8/15/2020. And I can do that again down here, equal date value, open parenthesis, click on this cell, close parenthesis, and now it gives me the serial number. If you remember in a previous video, I talked about anytime you get one of these numbers, it's like 44058. That is the serial number for today's date, which means this cell is formatted as a general or as a general or number format. What I have to do is go up and change it to the short date. Now, why was the first cell formatted as a date and the second one wasn't? Well, I was playing around with a file last night and I probably got the date format embedded in this first one and I didn't in the second one. So that's just why. Now I'm going to copy this or fill this cell down, the next two, to show you we'll do them for them as well, except notice that this last line has this error, hashtag value $sign. Now, what that means with this function is that this text over here is AUG space 15-20. Excel does not recognize that as a date format, so it doesn't know what to do with it. So you are going to get this error code when you choose text that Excel doesn't recognize that format as a date format. So if I were to come over here and put in a comma instead of the dash and hit enter, now notice it changes it to the date. So you have to have a valid date as far as Excel is concerned. It doesn't matter if you think it is, does Excel think it is? Okay, those are some of the date functions that you can use to make your life easier when dealing with dates in Excel. And again, the blog post goes into more functions and more detail, and I'll link it down below. But hopefully that you can see some of these as being useful to you and you can use them. If you have used any of them or others, Post a comment down below and talk about your experience and which ones you have found more useful, and other people will find that helpful.